The only witness to this murder was 2 years old. He didn't see a license plate. He didn't catch a name. He saw his mother get attacked on a sunny morning in a London park, and then he sat down next to her body, and he waited for her to wake up. A stranger found him there. The little boy had taken a piece of paper and laid it gently on his mom's forehead, the way you'd put a plaster on a scraped knee. He thought he was helping. That boy was the whole case, the only person alive who watched it happen. And here's the part that should make your jaw drop. The police were so sure they had their man that they spent a fortune, ran a secret honey trap operation, and dragged an innocent guy through hell to convict him. Meanwhile, the actual killer was sitting in their own custody for a different crime. They'd had him. His own mother had warned them about him years earlier, and they let him walk because, and I promise I am not making this up, they decided he was too tall. This is the story of Rachel Nickell, of the little boy who survived, and of the father who spent 16 years trying to put him back together. This is Netflix's The Witness. It started like the most ordinary morning you can imagine. July the 15th, 1992. A flat in southwest London. André Hanscombe is trying to get his 2-year-old son dressed, and the 2-year-old is having absolutely none of it. Alex wants his mom. He always wants his mom. Andre's a motorcycle courier. He's got a day of deliveries ahead, so he hands the boy over, kisses them both, and heads for the door. "I'll call you at lunch," he says. "Love you." That's the last normal sentence of his entire life. He just doesn't know it yet. Rachel takes Alex out for their usual walk on Wimbledon Common. And here's a small, awful detail the show plants early. Rachel used to walk somewhere else, but a man had exposed himself to her there a few weeks before, so she switched to Wimbledon. She moved to Wimbledon because she thought it was safer. Sit with that one for a second. They walk the dog. Alex counts the trees he's going to climb. 110, he decides, which is a very reasonable number when you're 2. They look for fish in the stream. Just a mom and her little boy on a bright summer morning. And then a man comes out of the trees. The show doesn't wallow in it, and neither will I. Rachel is attacked in a secluded part of the common. She's stabbed 49 times, and her son is right there. When it's over, the man disappears back into the trees. He leaves the boy alive. A passerby finds them a short while later, and the image is one you don't shake. The little boy is clinging to his mother, covered in mud and blood, and he keeps saying the same 3 words. "Get up, mummy! Get up, mummy! Help my mummy!" Across London, André is doing his rounds. He stops to phone home, the way he promised, and a stranger answers Rachel's phone. A voice he doesn't recognize, in his own house, asking, "Is this André? Are you Rachel's partner?" He races to find them. A detective sits him down in a quiet room, the kind of room where nothing good is ever said, and tells him the sentence that splits his life into a before and an after. Rachel was attacked and killed with a knife, and then, because the universe apparently wasn't done, the detective has to follow it up with the impossible part. Alex was there. Alex saw. Out on the common, the senior detectives are walking the scene. A man named Wickerson is trying to piece together the geography of it, where the attack started, where she was dragged, where it ended. And the officer who found them tells him what the boy had been saying over and over. "Get up, mummy!" The detectives go quiet, because it means the kid didn't just stumble onto it after. He watched the whole thing. They get Alex to a hospital. Physically, he's mostly okay. A few cuts on his face, a bump on the head. The damage that matters isn't the kind you can bandage, and the circus arrives almost immediately. A young, beautiful mother, murdered in broad daylight in a posh part of London, with her baby as the only witness. For the tabloids, that's not a tragedy, that's a headline. Reporters are offering Rachel's neighbors cash for photos of the inside of the house. One news report actually airs the question out loud, like it's a curiosity. Why didn't he kill the boy too? So André does the only thing he can. He takes Alex to his own mother's house to June, because she goes by her married name, and the press don't have it yet. A safe house, basically, on day 1. And before he can even begin to grieve, a child psychologist pulls him aside with the first piece of advice that's going to shape the next 16 years. Don't lie to him. Whatever you do, don't lie to this child. He needs honesty, and he needs routine, or this thing will follow him for the rest of his life. So André kneels down in front of his 2-year-old, and he finds the words. There was an accident. Mummy was killed, and she's gone. She isn't coming back. Alex doesn't cry. He doesn't really react at all. He's 2. He doesn't have the words yet. He just knows his mom is supposed to be here, and she isn't. And somewhere out there, the man who did it is washing his hands and going home. Now, a murder like this lands on a desk, and somebody has to own it. That somebody is Detective Inspector Keith Petter. The brass call him in, and they don't sugarcoat what they're handing him. A pretty blonde, a sexual homicide, a toddler witness, and a press pack that's already frothing. One of them basically tells Petter it's an editor's dream and a detective's nightmare in the same breath. Petter, to his credit, sees it coming. He calls the case a poisoned chalice. Hold on to that phrase, because he has no idea how right he is. Then comes the briefing, and the briefing is grim. 49 stab wounds in a public park, mid-morning, with a golf tournament happening 90 meters away, and something like 100 people scattered across the common. And what do they have? Half a footprint, some flecks of red paint in the little boy's hair, and a scrap of paper that was found resting on Rachel's forehead, which turns out to be a letter from her bank with her PIN number on it. Nobody can explain how it got there. 500 potential witnesses they still haven't traced. 100 known sex offenders living in the area. No weapon, no fingerprints. And get this, because no artery was cut, the killer probably walked away without a drop of blood on him. So that's the situation. A brutal murder in a crowded park in daylight, and the trail is basically vapor. Which leaves them with their one and only eyewitness, who is two. They bring in a specialist trained in childhood trauma to try and gently coax something out of Alex. And it is hard to watch. They give him toys, they give him crayons, they ask him soft little questions about the bad man. And mostly, Alex just plays and acts up, and at one point he grabs a crayon and stabs it into a piece of paper, over and over and over. Nobody has to say what that means. His dad watches from the side and barely recognizes his own son. Meanwhile, they bring in a criminal psychologist, Professor Britton, to build a profile. And Britton sketches the shape of a man. Not a monster, he says, a man, 20 to 30, poor social skills with women. A private life full of strong, deviant sexual fantasies. Probably some dysfunction. If he works at all, it's unskilled. A loner who blends in. File that away, because that profile is about to become both the most useful and the most destructive thing in this entire case. And then, a breakthrough that breaks your heart a little. André takes Alex back to the common to lay a single rose where Rachel died. He has to push through a wall of photographers to do it, shouting at them that they're scaring his son. But that night, something shakes loose in the little boy. Alex starts describing the man. He doesn't have the vocabulary, so he reaches for the only reference a 2-year-old has. He says the man wore a belt over his shirt, like Batman. The grown-ups are confused until they work it out. He means a belt worn on the outside, over an untucked shirt. White shirt, blue trousers, brown shoes, a black bag. He says, thin, like daddy. Young, white, short hair. It's an astonishing piece of recall from a child that small. And his dad's reaction isn't relief, it's dread, because it means Alex remembers everything, and nobody in that room can tell André what carrying that memory is going to do to his little boy. The detective is thrilled. Now they have a description to cross-check against 500 witness statements. Now they have something. What they don't have is patience or evidence, and a desperate investigation with no evidence and a screaming press pack is a dangerous thing. Because when you can't find the right man, the temptation is to build a case around a convenient one. And they were about to find someone very convenient. Enter the honey trap. The police have a suspect now. A local man named Colin Stagg, who walks his dog on the common, lives alone, and fits Professor Britton's profile a little too neatly. The problem is, they have nothing on him. No evidence. Nothing. So they decide to make some. They run a covert operation. They send in an undercover policewoman, codenamed Lizzie James, to pose as a woman writing to Stagg, building a relationship by letter, slowly drawing out his private fantasies. The theory is that the real killer won't be able to help himself, that he'll reveal something only the murderer could know. When somebody in the room calls it what it looks like, a trap, they get corrected. It's not a trap, they insist. It's designed to give the killer a chance to either rule himself out or hang himself. Around all this, André makes a decision. He cannot raise his son inside a hurricane. So once the inquest is done, he takes Alex and he leaves the country. He won't give the police a forwarding address. He won't give a direct phone number. The fewer people who know where they are, the fewer people can find them. And the reason he's so frightened of being found is shown to you in one of the ugliest moments in the show. As André leaves a police building, the press swarm him, and when he won't give them a photo, they turn. They scream racial slurs at him. Real ones. The kind the show doesn't bleep. This is a grieving father, and to a chunk of the press, he's not a grieving father at all. He's just a black man they can shout at. That's the world he's protecting his son from. They land in France, and André builds Alex a new life out of rules. We leave the bad things behind us. We do not tell anyone what happened to Mummy. If somebody asks, you say it was an accident. If they push, a car accident. And there's a bag by the front door, packed with passports and money, and Alex is told never to move it and never to take anything out of it, because if they ever have to run, that bag is all they need. That's the childhood, a cover story and a go bag. And it's in France that the little boy finally explains the strangest detail of the whole crime scene. The paper with Mummy's bank pin, the one nobody could explain. Alex put it there. He'd been told once that the number could help in an emergency, so when the worst worst thing imaginable happened. His 2-year-old brain did the only thing it could think of. He found Mummy's important paper and he laid it on her to help. Mystery solved. And somehow that answer is sadder than the mystery ever was. Back in London, the trap is closing. Lizzie James meets Stagg in Hyde Park. She feeds him a dark story about a violent ritual murder, testing him, and he doesn't flinch. He hands her new letters, more extreme fantasies, one describing a knife. Professor Britton is electric about it. He says this is an extremely rare sexual deviance, and the odds of 2 men with this exact deviance both being on Wimbledon Common at the moment of the murder are, in his words, practically nil. And then comes the moment they'll hang the whole thing on. Stagg lies down on the ground and shows Lizzie the position Rachel's body was found in, the position of her head, her hands. Details, the police say, that were never made public. Only the killer would know that. At 5:30 in the morning, they arrest Colin Stagg at his home in Roehampton. They charge him with murder, and as far as Keith Petter is concerned, the case is closed. He is so sure. He is so completely sure. And he is so completely wrong. Because while they were building a case against the wrong man, the real killer was about to walk into a house in Plumstead and prove it in the most horrifying way possible. Quick thing before we get there. If you've stuck with the story this far, you're exactly who this channel is for. The people who want the whole thing and not the 2-minute version. So do me a favor and subscribe. It genuinely keeps these going. Right, Plumstead, November 1993. A young mother named Samantha Bissay is at home with her 4-year-old daughter, Jasmine. Samantha had told her boyfriend just the week before that she thought a man had been watching her, a voyeur. She was right to be scared. That night, a man climbs in through her window, and he murders both of them. The scene is so horrific that I'm not going to walk you through it, and the show, to its credit, doesn't either. Just know that it was bad enough that one of the detectives says it's the worst thing he's ever worked. That detective is Mickey Banks, and almost immediately, Mickey looks at the Bissay case and feels a cold prickle of recognition. A knife, a young mother, sexual violence, a child present. It rhymes with Wimbledon. So he goes to Petter's team, and he says the words nobody wants to hear. What if it's the same man? And Petter, who has Colin Stagg sitting in a cell, who has spent a fortune and staked his career on Stagg, does not want to hear it. Stagg's been in custody since August, he points out. He can't have done this. And besides, he says, our child didn't die, as if a different outcome means a different killer. He waves Mickey off. He has his man. But the Bissay scene gives the police something the Nickell scene never did. A fingerprint on the window frame. And when they run it, they get a name. Robert Clive Napper. And here is where the show stops being a tragedy and starts being an absolute indictment. Because the police already knew this name. Napper was a suspect in a long string of rapes across southeast London. He'd been flagged from an E-fit more than once. People had literally called in and said, that drawing looks like Robert Napper. He'd been asked to come give a blood sample. He didn't show. They asked again. He didn't show. Twice. And they eliminated him. Why? Because some of the victims described their attacker as around 5'7", and Napper is over 6'1". Too tall, that's the reason. A man named repeatedly who ducked 2 blood tests, written off because witnesses thought he was shorter. Mickey Banks sits there listening to this, and you can watch the disbelief move across his face. Because if they'd tested Napper when they first had the chance, Rachel Nickell might still be alive. And so might Samantha and Jasmine Bissay. Mickey arrests him, and when they search Napper's room, they find a small arsenal of knives and a map of London with attack locations marked on it. One of those marks is in southwest London, right on top of Wimbledon Common. He'd basically drawn them a confession in red pen. Mickey tries to get the message to Petter's team. He leaves it with the office, and it goes nowhere, because the office is busy with the man they've already charged. So now we get to the courtroom. The case against Colin Stagg reaches the Old Bailey, and the entire prosecution rests on that honey trap, on the letters and the body position and Lizzie James. The defense calls it exactly what it was, a sophisticated trap designed for one purpose, to manufacture a confession out of a lonely man. And the judge agrees. He rules that the undercover operation was so flawed, legally and morally, from beginning to end, that it's unreliable and inadmissible. He throws all of it out. With nothing left, the prosecution has no case. And Colin Stagg, a man who spent more than a year in custody, walks out of the Old Bailey a free man, his life in ruins, branded a murderer in the public's mind for years to come. Keith Petter sits with André afterward, and the swagger is gone. Stagg is our man, he insists, one more time, because he has to. And then, quieter, the truth. I trusted you, and I let you down, and I let Alex down, and Rachel. The papers run the headline that says it all. Profile of a police fiasco. The Metropolitan Police, the most famous force in the world, just ran one of the most expensive murder investigations in British history straight into a wall. The real killer was in their cells. His mother had warned them about him years before. His face matched their drawing, and he was free, and an innocent man's name was destroyed. And a little boy still didn't have an answer. And that little boy was growing up. Here's the quiet tragedy underneath the whole case. While the police were busy losing, Alex was busy growing. André keeps moving them. France, and then on to Catalonia, in Spain. New countries, new schools, new cover stories. There's an au pair now, Carla, and the toddler who laid a paper on his mother's forehead is a teenager, and the teenager is angry, and he doesn't fully know why. He smokes weed. He skates recklessly, like he's daring the ground to hurt him. He stays out past curfew, runs with an older crowd, gets into fights. André tries to lock it all down, and the harder he grips, the more Alex slips. There's a line where André admits the real problem out loud. The boy has no fear, he says, because the worst thing that could ever happen to him already happened. How do you ground a kid who's already survived the end of the world? And the thing Alex can feel, even if he can't name it, is that his dad's love comes wrapped in surveillance. When Alex gets accused of something at school, a theft he says he didn't do, André defends him. But not the way a normal dad defends a kid. He defends him with a legal tactic. No evidence means nothing, he says. He learned that watching Colin Stagg walk free. And Alex realizes, with a sting, that his father wasn't worried about whether he was innocent. He was worried that an investigation might run a background check and blow their cover. It boils over. Alex calls him a liar, tells him the truth he's been circling for years. You always said it was the world you didn't trust. But it's not the world, Dad. It's me. You always thought I'd be the one to go wrong. And then one day, Alex goes missing, and André finds him in a hospital with a broken arm after a brawl between gangs of kids. And there's a vandalized police car in the mix. And André's first reaction isn't relief that his son is okay. It's fear that this will expose them. And he says something he can't take back. He throws his mother in the boy's face. He tells Alex he's wasting Rachel's sacrifice. And Alex stops. What sacrifice? So André tells him the thing he's been carrying alone. When the pathologist re-examined the case, he was certain of one detail. Rachel had no defensive wounds. None. She didn't fight back. She didn't try to protect herself. And the only reason a mother doesn't fight, the theory goes, is that she made a choice. She stayed still, and she let it happen, because she was hoping that if she didn't struggle, the man wouldn't hurt her little boy. She traded herself for him. It's the heaviest thing one person can hand another. And André, in his grief and his anger, hands it to a teenager in the middle of a fight. Alex looks at him and says the words that have been building for years. I love you, Dad, but I don't respect you. And André, out of punishments, out of road, finally lets go of the leash. But while the family is breaking, something is finally turning in London. The year is 2002, and a new team has quietly reopened the case. A detective named Ivan Agnew flies André back, shows him a room dedicated to nothing but Rachel, and tells him that DNA technology has moved on since 1992. An independent lab is going back over every original sample. They found unknown male DNA on Rachel's clothing, and it doesn't belong to André, and it doesn't belong to Alex. For 2 years, it's painstaking, and then Ivan comes back with the number that changes everything. They compared that DNA against 88 people of interest. 87 were excluded. 1 was not. And no, Ivan says, before André can even ask, it's not Colin Stagg. We know who it is, and this time he is going to answer for what he did. Cut to a man in a secure psychiatric hospital. A nurse says, "Time for your session, Bob." After more than a decade, they finally had a name. The hard part was proving it. They sit André down in the British consulate in Barcelona, and they tell him the name, Robert Napper. Locked in Broadmoor since the mid-90s for the Bissett murders. And André, who has been burned by these people before, who watched them destroy an innocent man and call it justice, is not about to clap. He tells them flat out, "Why would I believe you? I don't want a suspect. I want the truth. About that day, and about every day after it, when nobody was held responsible. When you've got that, I'll listen." So the team goes and gets it. First, they prove where Napper wasn't. He'd always claimed he was at work the day Rachel died, at a company called Serco in Greenwich. His old foreman, a meticulous man named George, used to keep annual charts of every employee's hours. The 1992 chart had gone missing years ago, but the team tracks George down, and he digs through his garage, and he finds it. And there it is, in black and white. Wednesday, the 15th of July, 1992. Robert Napper Napper, off work all day, which doesn't just put him out of the office. It proves he lied to the police back in 1995 when he told them he'd been at work. Then the forensics. Remember that half footprint from the Common? One of the only physical traces the killer left? There were no shoes in Napper's room when he was arrested, which means whatever he'd been wearing went into storage with the rest of his things and has been sitting in a Broadmoor warehouse for 10 years. So they go get the boots. And then there's the red paint. Those flecks in 2-year-old Alex's hair back in 1992. The team now thinks it came from a toolbox Napper carried on his attacks. And here's the gut twist. Alex's hair samples still exist. They can test the paint, but the test will destroy the fragments completely. One shot. If it fails, that evidence is gone forever. So they hold their breath and they run it. Now they need Napper himself. They go into Broadmoor to interview him, and it is a strange, sad scene. He's frail. He's got an advocate beside him who will stop things the moment he gets distressed. Because he isn't a prisoner here. He's a patient. The detective, Nash, lays it out. We've got your DNA on Rachel. We can prove you weren't at work. Why did you lie? And Napper, who refers to himself in the plural, just says, we didn't do that. No comment. No comment. And then the show gives you a look inside the wreckage of his mind. Because Robert Napper genuinely believes things that never happened. He'll tell you he has telepathic powers, that the IRA shot him in the knee, that he once lost his fingers defusing a bomb, and they grew back after he breathed in some shiny vapor. His father, he says, won the Nobel Peace Prize, and somewhere in a bank in Sidcup, there's a fortune waiting for him. All his Star Wars money. This is the man, not a criminal mastermind, a profoundly broken human being who happened to be capable of unspeakable things. They test the boots on the Common in matched conditions. The DNA comes back at 1 in 12 million. They charge him, and André decides he's going to be in that courtroom. Alex refuses. It has nothing to do with us, he says, and André tells him it has everything to do with us. The press, of course, find them again. They always knew where the family was, it turns out. They were just waiting for a reason. Now a young man, and for the first time, he talks about his mother as a person instead of a case. I remember her face, he says, but mostly, I remember the feeling of being completely loved by her, and I can still smell her. I kept a bottle of her perfume, the Old Bailey. At last, Robert Clive Napper stands and he enters his plea, not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter, on the grounds of diminished responsibility. His lawyers lay out the Asperger's, the paranoid schizophrenia, the suicide attempt, the delusions. The judge looks at him and does the math out loud. You stabbed Rachel 49 times with her son right there. The marks on the boy say you dragged him away first, and the only reason he's alive, the judge says, is that you panicked about being caught and didn't take the time to kill him too, the way you would later take the time with Jasmine Bissay. You are, in my opinion, a very dangerous man. Go back to Broadmoor. You will never be released. Napper's lawyer offers an apology on his behalf to Rachel's family and to Colin Stagg, the innocent man they put through hell. And as they lead Napper out, Alex says the only thing left to say. Can someone apologize to the boy? Outside, the Met does its damage control. They formally apologize to Colin Stagg. They praise the cold case team that finally got it right. But a reporter cuts through the spin with the only honest line of the day. Napper escaped justice for 16 years, he says. More because of the institutional incompetence of the Metropolitan Police than because of any cunning on the killer's part. André finds the senior officer Campbell, and he doesn't shout. He just asks the question that's been sitting in his chest for 16 years. You could have stopped him before he killed anyone, couldn't you? And then he answers it himself. No, I've got nothing to say. Not to them, and least of all to you. But Alex isn't finished, because Alex needs to understand why. He tracks down the psychiatrist who treated Napper, and he asks her the question the courts never really answer. Who is this man? And she tells him carefully that this is theory and not certainty. Napper was bullied, his parents' marriage was violent, and he and his mother were both victims of his drunk father. His Asperger's went undiagnosed for most of his childhood, which isolated him even further. And at around 12, he was raped in the woods by a family friend. Then she offers the theory that lands like a punch. Napper, she thinks, was violently angry at his mother for the father leaving, and he punished that rage over and over on women who were maternal in a way he never got to experience. Mothers with their children present. Alex sits very still and asks the question, so my mother was his mother. Maybe, the psychiatrist says, and maybe that's why he let you live, because you were him, the little boy watching. Except you had a father who came back for you, and he didn't. And then comes the last gut punch from the system. An anonymous source inside the Crown Prosecution Service sends André and Alex a file, the full, unredacted list of every single chance the police had to stop Robert Napper and didn't. In 1989, his own mother phoned the police to tell them her son had confessed to a rape, and they did not follow it up. A year after he murdered Rachel, police caught Napper in a woman's garden, and they gave him a lift home. 3 months after that, he murdered Samantha and Jasmine Bissay. Page after page of it, error after error. A man who could have been stopped a dozen times, walking free through every open door they left him. And this is where the show makes its real move. Because Alex reads all of that, and he doesn't come out of it consumed by hatred. He comes out of it understanding something about himself and about his dad. It's hard to make good choices, he tells André, when you have nobody who loves you. And I always had that. I had Mom, and I had you. Robert Napper never did. And then Alex says the thing he's been refusing to say for 16 years. I once told you I didn't respect you, and I meant it. I don't feel that anymore. I've got nothing but respect for what you did for me. You kept me alive. And André, breaking, gives it right back. No, you kept me alive. The show ends on the real thing. Actual home footage of the actual Alex as a toddler, playing with his actual mom and dad. Rachel, alive, laughing with her boy. And over it, the truth Alex finally arrived at. People always told me the killer spared me, that he gave me a second chance. But I don't believe he let me live. I think love did that. The closing cards tell you the rest. Using that leaked file, André and Alex sued the police and forced an independent report that confirmed it all in cold print. A catalog of bad decisions and errors, without which Robert Napper could have been stopped before he killed Rachel, before he killed the Bissays, before he attacked dozens of other women. An internal review found serious failings. Not a single officer was ever disciplined. The DNA technique they invented to finally catch him went on to solve other cold cases. And André and Alex are still in Spain, still together. Closer, the film says, than they have ever been. So that's The Witness. And the reason it stays with you isn't the killer, and it isn't even the staggering police failure, although that should make all of us furious. It's the math of it. A force with every resource in the world spent 16 years getting it wrong, and one man with no resources at all, a courier who lost the love of his life and got handed a traumatized 2-year-old, spent those same 16 years quietly getting the only thing that mattered right. He kept his son alive. He kept him loved. The system that was supposed to protect Rachel Nickell failed her, and failed the Bissets, and failed Colin Stagg, and never paid a price for any of it. The father nobody was watching is the one who actually saved someone. The killer left a boy alive on Wimbledon Common that morning, and everyone spent years calling it mercy. It wasn't mercy. A little boy survived the worst day imaginable, and then he got something his mother's murderer never had. He got a parent who refused to stop showing up. That's the whole story. That's what carried him through. If this one got to you, go watch our breakdown of the next case on the screen right now. And if you want more stories like this, the ones the headlines got wrong and the recaps skip over, subscribe, because we cover the ones nobody else will. I'm Seriously. I'll see you in the next one.